Welcome to Pride and Promotion, the podcast that celebrates every color under the rainbow and dives deep into the heart of marketing, exploring how innovation and diversity can drive business growth. I'm Joe Federico, your host on this exciting journey and owner of J. Federico Marketing. Every week, we reveal the magic behind effective brand storytelling and examine how inclusive marketing can transform your business landscape. So get ready, because this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Hey everybody, I am Joe Federico of J. Federico Marketing, and you know this, the Pride and Promotion podcast. Welcome to another episode, and today I have a very special guest and client, Robert Rosh, and he is the author of The Summer Between that launched September 3rd, 2024. Robert, thanks for joining. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm piping in from Naples, Florida today.
Very nice. Well, thanks again for joining, first of all. Second of all, I want you to introduce yourself, tell the world who you are and what brought this book on, then we'll really get into social media.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, as Joe said, I'm Robert Rosh, and this is my debut novel, my first book, The Summer Between. And in prior life, I was an architect and a designer and ran a visual communications business. And this is a new iteration of my very interesting path and career, and probably the most exciting. So I'm happy to share any insight I can with you.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And we've spoken offline about this working together, which we'll get into in just a moment. But
Fun.
How does it feel to have this newfound life that you're experiencing all at once with launching a book, especially within the queer community, learning more about social media, which we'll dig into? So just like, where are you mentally, and how has it been for you the past few weeks?
Well, the first word that comes to mind is gratitude. I'm so grateful for just to be in this place and to get here and to have the book be published and out in the world for people to enjoy, and as well as to inform many others. This is just it's a whole new learning experience for me, which of course excites somewhat or former type A creatives like myself. I always like learning new things and sketching and using different tools, and words have always been so important to me in telling stories that I am delighted to be writing.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I mean, it's all about evolution. We were just talking, behind in the green screen in the waiting room. It's all about community, and your book certainly encompasses all of that. So
thank you.
Where did you get the inspiration? Let's start from the beginning of writing this book. How long did it take? And then we'll head back to the 70s, if you will. You're in your book, 1978, I believe, in New York City.
Yeah.
And how marketing really was back then. And then we'll, bring the whole audience up to speed. So please have the floor.
Yeah. They started as short stories, I've always been somewhat of a writer, but I've always been more of a visual artist. But I've always written short stories. In high school, I had a newspaper column in the town paper, and I worked on the high school yearbook as an editor. And I've always sort of been in that realm. And some of the short stories just started collecting, and some were based somewhat on experiences in my own life. And then I would take them into a different direction. And then they started to accumulate, and I put them together, and I thought, okay, I think there's a bigger story here. And that's where I really started to fictionalize everything, using some of my background, small town in New Jersey, some of that stuff as familiar territory to then depart from. And I would say the whole process took maybe 3.5 years, not at all full time, but some very concentrated periods. And I found that the best periods of writing were when I would go off somewhere, like to Telluride while my friends were skiing. I was sitting at a desk writing for hours. I'm like delighted to do that. Same in Copenhagen and some other places. It was just, once I could get my head into the characters and into the scene, my mind and creativity would just take off. And I really did think of the chapters more as each one was a different scene then
Sure.
chapter in a bigger book, and then I strung them together. It's a long answer. Sorry.
No, hey, that's why we're here. We got plenty of time,
Okay,
right?
good, good.
And we found each other on social media. You had friended
Yeah.
me originally on Facebook
Yes.
only about a month ago.
Yes.
So I feel like we're best friends,
Yeah.
kind of like best girlfriends.
Kindred spirits for sure.
Yeah, right. Both Italian, both have, both from New Jersey, both have, experience in writing.
Yep.
Of course, you knew this when you friended me
Yeah.
before we even became client and coach. That I too have experience in the world of publishing. I have for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. And it, like, as soon as I saw your profile and I, like, you know, hit send to friend you, I realized this is who I need, that social media guru. I really need to amp up. That's like, like you realize where you're strong and where you're weak. And it was definitely an area that I was weaker. And
Sure.
you were my answer.
I mean, I'm so grateful.
You
But truth
continue
be
to be.
told, so let's do some real time tea, right? We like to spill the tea in this community a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
little bit, a healthy dose. How did you find me on Facebook?
I'm trying to remember. I think it was through another writer friend, and I
Uh huh.
saw social media, and it was like it was like you just sort of appeared at a time that I needed you to appear.
Uh huh.
And I started reading your bio and your information, and like as I just said, you were the missing piece of what I needed to support my general publicity with the publisher itself, and then with
Right.
another wonderful PR agent, Michelle, who Michelle Carlsberg, and you were the social media piece that came together, and you just like appeared on my screen, and I was like, boop.
Right place, right time, folks.
Exactly.
Is the power of
Exactly.
social
Exactly.
media. Yeah. But also, truth be told, I receive a lot of requests. Not that I'm saying like who the hell I am, but I was like, who's this gentleman? Because there wasn't a lot of information on your personal profile at the time
Nothing.
about the book. And I'm thinking,
Nothing.
is this
Hardly.
is this a real guy? Is he legit? And I warily accepted, and you didn't know this until today. And
Nope.
I'm like, okay. So then I looked and I tried, and folks, everybody out tuning in from TV land, this is what you're supposed to do when looking for legitimacy on social media, for authors and for businesses and for products and services. Do your homework, right? So I went from Facebook. I said, okay, like we'll see what he has to offer. I didn't even know that you needed social media. And then I went to Instagram. I'm like, okay, he has a profile. He's got a book. There are a few book pictures and some videos. You were about to go to Copenhagen at the time a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, he seems legitimate. If he's a fake or a bot, we'll just delete him, and then we'll just go from there. And that would have been that. That would have been the end of that. And then we got to talking,
Yeah.
and I think we hit it off beautifully, to be honest.
Immediately. Yeah. Like,
Yeah,
as you said earlier, well, we call each other paisans, which is the
Paisan.
Italian word for, close friends. And
Yeah,
we just
yeah.
have a great rhythm. And I think
And
that's your personality. I see you doing that with other folks as well. I mean, I just think
thank you.
you give so much of yourself and you're so open that I think you're in a dream role for yourself.
Sure. No, I mean, we could joke that like right place, wrong time, which I firmly believe in, right? And we were destined to meet or at least talk, at least as authors or Italian men, from the same area growing up originally. But that really is the power of social media, folks. Is the connection,
Yep.
with like-minded people, especially within the queer community, and we need a lot more of that.
Yep.
So then we kind of went back and forth. We didn't really chat, and I'm like, okay, I see book and I put the pieces together. I'm thinking he may need assistance. Why not?
Yep.
And then we had a consult for about an hour, about a week later, I believe.
Yeah.
No FaceTime, not seeing what each other, what we look like. Just here's
Awesome.
who I am. Here's what I offer. What are you looking for? And then we went from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, okay, done. Check.
Chuck,
This is the person I need.
done. So have you ever worked with a social media person in the past?
Never. Well, in my visual communications business, we had either large corporations like Silicon Valley companies that had in-house social media people. And we would collaborate with them. But on a personal level, absolutely not. Absolutely.
No.
So I knew a little bit about social media, but not for myself. That was like, you know, that was
Yeah.
it, like not at
Why
all
did you think?
consideration.
Sure. Why do you think that you needed social media? I mean, I can tell you why as your coach, and knowing you very well now.
Yeah.
But when you this all came to fruition, and of course you worked with a publisher, which I know because I've been there myself, and then
Yep.
you got a publicist. What made you decide to finally just bite the bullet and learn more about how social can assist you with the book promotion?
I think very simply recognizing my lack of expertise in this area, starting
Mhm.
to try to, like navigate it myself a little bit and realizing almost immediately that I didn't know how to reach a broader audience than my
Sure,
incredible group of friends and acquaintances already on there, but already on social media. But how do I broaden that? And I had no idea. I had no idea what to do and how to do it, but I knew that I needed to because I want the book to find as big an audience as it possibly can
sure,
because I think people will enjoy it. So,
yeah,
yeah,
and they have been, and
yeah,
they have been.
yeah. Fortunately,
Just because I, have been seeing a lot behind the scenes on my laptop, my computer, my mobile device.
he's
I see
taken
all
over
these.
all of my social media.
I took over. I took over. But that's what a marketing team really needs to be doing,
Yeah,
officially, because there's always going to be transparency, or there should be transparency when we work that closely with a client, or vice versa.
yeah,
But I feel that we had that, especially from the beginning, as we had talked about.
yeah, yeah, and I had complete trust in you. So
Yeah. And I appreciate that because I've been at this over now going on 12 years next year, which it feels like a lifetime, but I've dedicated myself to the craft, to
yeah,
the art. And then refining that, like we talked about this morning on our training call, I got you twice today,
yeah, yeah.
is the power of the evolution of the persona,
Yep.
and the power of user generated content, which we could talk about in a moment. And then really I really needed to know who you were before we even started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your
So
questions were
how did
great.
that come?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say that you sent out a questionnaire that was great because it really made me think um, about this idea of a persona, which I'd never really considered before. Like, how
Sure.
much of myself do you share? And I'll let you lead that a little bit more, the conversation about persona, but I've learned a lot about that.
That's how I start off. That's how I started off, when I too come from a background in corporate.
Hmm.
And it kicked my ass. I mean, it was great financially, great benefits, but I was working 60 hours a week,
Yeah.
working for somebody else, like essentially taking my work and like putting their name on it.
Yeah.
And it was
Uh,
and it was unsolicited white labeling or whatever,
right.
And I'm like, girl, I can't be doing this. If I come up
Especially as
with
creatives, like when people take
no,
over, it's just not, it's like, boom, it's like it doesn't work.
right in the heart, or right,
World for us.
like not to be crass, but to like nail you to a cross and say, well, too bad.
Yeah.
I I couldn't do it, but that's a whole different conversation.
Nor
You
can,
know,
yeah.
yeah.
Or do it well.
As a creative,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So originally, and I think you knew this, but for those out there in TV land, and of course looking to hire a social media person, it may not be me, and that's okay. I'm not for everybody, but the persona program originated from the need of needing, social media organically to tell a story behind a brand.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do with my clients, especially with clients like you, as I'm evolving my own brand to this day,
Yeah. Yeah.
as who I am trying to position myself as the coach, as building, as we say on my videos, the Maven Nation. How are we going to creatively extract that from you, a budding young persona, and then making your life that much easier?
And evolve, like the word evolve that you use just really struck me too, because that's exactly what it is. We can't just like create this like cartoon character and, have it live as that. We're always evolving as creatives. So the persona has to evolve as well. And I think
And we should as humans
we
too.
should. Yeah. 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 For
Hmm.
sure.
So how did you feel after we spoke? I know we hit it off. That's all great. I'm very blessed and thankful for that. But when you got the questionnaire, how did you feel?
I felt good because, at first I didn't really know. enough about it, and I thought, oh, I'm creating this alter person and I have to
Mhm.
create this version of me that doesn't really exist. And then I realized after by doing the questionnaire, like it's really more authentic than that. And it's not like creating this fake person that acts very differently, otherwise. And it felt
Sure,
good because then I realized, there's like a public face, and that's just okay. It's okay to be that way. But as long as I'm sincere and genuine and disclose what I want to disclose, for the purposes of reaching people.
right.
Does that make sense? That was kind of a tongue-tied.
No, that makes absolute
Okay.
sense. It wasn't word salad,
Okay. Good.
right? A little nod there,
Yeah.
but that's the starting off point where
Yeah.
you take a look in the mirror, a long, hold, hard look, cold, hard look in the mirror and say, I may be missing something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then I look at it with my team and I say, here's how I can fill in those holes.
Yeah.
Here's how I can kind of spackle and make it look prettier, but also a lot more human.
Yeah, yeah, and it was also like talking to friends too. Like it was over that weekend. I was like not only thinking about it, but I was overseas and I was talking to friends about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, well I'm a yoga teacher." My friend Hector was like, "I'm a yoga teacher, and I
Right.
specialize in different types of holistic areas and spa areas." And he said, and I've created a persona. And I was like, oh, so you know what this is? You've done this before? And it's like, then I talked to my friend Maria, and she had done sort of the same thing, not to the degree that you've pushed me to do it, but it was very illuminating. So it's nice always to talk to other people too, because you get more insight that way.
It's all about community, and
Yeah,
those that are really meant to be in your circle are
totally.
supposed to be there,
Yeah, agreed.
elevating each other up. And you actually floored me with our first official conversation only a few weeks ago. You actually spoke well towards the persona and knew what you were
Okay,
talking about,
good. I'm a good student.
which which but that surprised me. Not that I don't love my other students, my other clients, what I do, but a lot of people coming into this looking for assistance have absolutely no idea what a persona is,
Yeah,
and that's okay.
yeah, yeah,
That's where I come in just a little bit deeper.
yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
So I want to just jump back for a second, and
Okay.
I'm wondering, and I'm sure we all are too, is what do you think social media marketing was before you came aboard? Like, I'm interested to pick your brain a little bit.
Ooh, that's a good question. Of course, like I was aware of influencers, but I've always thought that was product related, right? To sell things and to also, it seems like a lot of influencers were trying to gain product and gain notoriety
Sure.
um, by their persona. And then it was like friends, keeping in touch with friends from high school and college and all facets of life. It reminds me of that website Friendster that was out before Facebook, like in the early 2000s. And I don't know. I just think that it was more of a social outlet to share with people what you're doing. Try not to be too, I don't know, try not to share too much or be too boasting about it or be too fake about it.
Mhm.
That and influencers and ways to get information and news. And then there's a lot of fake stuff on it too. So it was like, how do I fit into all of these different things? And what do I do with that? Like to
But
create,
but exactly.
reach people to sell my book.
By being
Read
a
my book.
person of the page, as Anne Rice said, you've heard me say this on my videos, and but also uh, being a sponge. You just coming into this.
Yeah.
What were your expectations before working with a person like me? I mean, like, what did you expect to get out of this? And we soared so quickly. So, what were your expectations? And I'm hearing this for the first time as well.
Well, this is really interesting because my expectations were that you uh, would take over and just do all of this for me. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize how involved I would be in the process and how
Hmm.
important it is for me to be in the process to keep it genuine and authentic. So that was a little bit of a happy surprise for me because I like being
Sure.
involved in the process and learning new things. And it wasn't just like, here, Joe, do it. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, this is a total collaboration. And there's much more expected of me than I realized, but I'm glad for that because I'm also learning and being a part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. Which again, that I feel makes me more unique than other people doing what we do here, at J.
Yeah.
Federico Marketing. But my expectations for you were you at least knew where you wanted to go. You're an author, and we start with that lump of clay.
Yeah.
Which by having that conversation, sending you the questionnaire,
Yep.
reading it, doing my homework, and not just just give me a check, Robert, and I'm going to see you next month.
No.
My expectations, especially for clients coming on board, are you have to have the willingness to understand why you need the outward facing persona and a willingness to actually learn because, of course, I would love to work with you long term for years, and I'm sure we're going to, God willing. But
yes.
Once I eventually, if I'm not around, and I do say 24/7, and you can attest to this, I'm around most of the 24/7 time frame,
Yeah.
which probably sounds insane, but I work. I am a giver, and
I feel guilty. I'll send you a text and I'll say, save this for Monday, or I'll send you an email like, no, it's Sunday. Don't read this today, because I don't want to interrupt your whole life. But you're usually it's like ding within seconds or minutes.
Well, that's another expectation, at least from my end, is the person has to be open to be communicative in times that may not be working business hours.
Right. Yeah.
Because if I need a passcode or something to work for you, you Gen Pop, not you necessarily, Robert, then I'm working all kinds of hours of the night, which is not expected, but it's what I expect for myself, that I'm proving to you I'm worthy of the check, but also worthy of getting to you where you need to be, and then some.
Yeah. Agreed. Happily.
Period.
Yeah.
And there's no animosity between us. Not that there ever is with my clients, but between when you say we've come to joke with each other too, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's just a great
Good and when you say something like, I'll go to bed, I'm like, never. Or I joke back with you when I say, girl, I'm trying to set up your LinkedIn. Give me or
yeah.
And then I'll go read my Frankenstein book, watch an episode of True Blood, and then I'll go to bed.
Yeah. And it's never like, oh, damn, Joe's asking a question now. I'm always like, oh, God. I'm always more impressed than I am. Yeah.
So those are just, some of those expectations as well for my clientele base in the past, current, and in the future. We have to be able to sound like each other, work well together. I've had clients that I want to add you to this list too, Robert, of having rolling contracts, 3, 4, 5, 6 years where they just keep coming back, keep learning more, keep growing. And what I was going to say, and I had forgotten because I'm enveloped in this conversation, which is I want to talk for hours with you. We have to have you back on the show, of course.
Yeah, I'd love to.
But write a progress report. How you doing in 2 months, 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say earlier is if there ever comes a time when I'm not available, when I'm sleeping, for instance, or maybe celebrating a birthday, which I still work, by the way.
Or working for another client. Oh, what a shock that would be, right?
Right. But have you become more educated? And, it's easier to teach a man how to fish than to give him the food.
Yeah.
And because that will help you long term.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like I know it's like 0 to I know so much more than when I started about.
And your numbers went sky high, and they're evening out, which is what we want.
Yeah.
Because we went 0 to 60 in a very informed, educated, less naive manner on your profiles.
Yeah, I was shocked. I was like, where did all these people come from?
94,000 plus % increase or so.
Yeah.
In a matter of days of non-followers. That's spectacular.
Oh, great.
Just by posting, you're my proof here. Maybe 3 reels in a week, the first week. Yeah.
I already look back at the first couple of reels and I'm like, oh my God, how high I'm Robert, and I'm looking around and this and that. And I'm not at all a pro yet, but I've definitely improved, and we keep improving.
Of course. Yeah. But that's the point, because you admitted you knew you needed help.
Oh yeah.
You didn't know what you didn't know. Just like when I spoke with your publicist, Michelle, by the way, if you're looking out there in TV land for a publicist, we'll provide that information on the website in this episode.
Yeah.
But when I got on the phone with her, And I've always wanted to align myself with a publicist
Yeah.
that knew what they knew, which is PR, which I can do, and I can offer most of what my competitors are offering.
Hmm.
But a publicist that knew only PR and wanted to stay in their lane
Hmm.
and wanted to say to align with a social media marketer, right, that has been around the block several times. Hi, my name is Joe.
Yeah.
And we had a great conversation a few weeks ago. You had introduced us. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And she's sending me people that may need assistance in the community that you just want to have start the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all about like, like this is the collaboration. I want you to succeed. It's not like, oh, Joe's mine. I don't want anybody else to find him or use him. It's like
Right.
I want to help you as much as I can, do what you do well and have other people experience just I don't know, the growth and the great expertise that you have to share. You're also like slightly different generations, so you know much more about this stuff than I
I thank you.
do.
I do like getting on the phone to book a flight, to book a hotel, to call Amazon, customer service more than most of my fellow. I'm gagging while saying this. Elder millennial. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I'm
That's a whole new
younger age. Thank you. Thank you. Um, but I can understand different generations,
Yeah,
and but that's part of my job
yeah, yeah,
is to speak um, different languages, or understand the terminology in which I need to create, content for
yeah,
or about.
yeah.
Um, Another thing I was going to get into was asking you, what did you feel like your persona was going to be versus where it landed when we first started working together?
Once I understood what it was and that I needed to create it, I don't really know. I thought it would be maybe a faker version of myself, like to use the word again, like a cartoon version of myself.
Uh-huh.
Learn that that's not it. It's really me, but um, just a different part of me or emphasizing a different part of my personality and who I am as an author, which I would say 6 months ago would have been difficult for me to say, oh, I'm an author. And it's part of that is like owning that and being, yeah, I just read a freaking book and it's published and it's out there and
Yeah.
an author, and feeling better about that, which is this whole process has helped me do. So that persona is alive.
Are you starting to feel more comfortable after a few weeks of working,
Yes.
on your posts,
Yeah.
looking at your first one
Yeah.
versus where you are, or even our conversation this morning of, telling you literally content I said is freaking everywhere.
Yeah.
If you just have a different take the blinders off, you have a different perspective
And
on
have fun with it
creating.
too, which is I think initially I was just, oh, I have to be like this person and I have to be this serious, like PBS author or whatever. And what you've
Yeah,
shown is that I can be myself, which is a little bit goofy and I'm somewhat of an introvert, but I think this whole process is starting to create a ham in me, turn out the ham in me where I'm kind of like enjoying it. I'm like, oh, I get to do another video today. Where at first I was like, oh man, how am I going to get through this? I don't even like looking at myself on the screen. I still
yeah.
like that so much, but it's like, yeah, I'm much more comfortable, the whole thing. It's kind
And
of
you were even joking,
fun.
which I'm very glad you said that because you had said when you first texted me, when you were traveling Copenhagen, which you have to take me there, by the way.
Yeah,
Someday we have to
yeah, yeah,
party and
yeah,
write
yeah.
together or collaborate,
Best friends there.
or at least hire me to come travel with you to create your content.
Just carry my
You
bag.
know,
Yeah.
just carry your bag, or your bag and my equipment, right? My whole setup. But you had said when you sent me your first video, you had said take 57, I believe, or 58 or 59,
Oh yeah.
something. And what was going through your mind when you recorded that very first reel? And I broke it down for you.
Well, I felt like an idiot, like, because I was trying to read a script. I actually created a script for myself and I was trying to
Mhm.
read it. And I realized that by reading the script, I was goofing off and screwing up more than was right. And then I remembered what you said about just speak from your heart, speak from your knowledge. And I kind of put that aside and just started talking. And I saw a different person, a different personality, and
Hmm.
that was less stiff. And that's what I do now. Like I have more notes, but I just realized right now I stopped writing the scripts.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
In a
it's
matter of three
usually a
weeks.
few takes and
Right.
I'm there. But yeah, it was like 56 or whatever. It was ridiculous. I was like, oh my,
That's called earning your stripes.
I guess so. I guess
but
so.
but that's why the process works,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and which I'm sure I've told you this. Uh, those out there tuning in from TV land, I'm sure I've shared this a million times, and I'll continue to share it a million more, right, on my reels. But originally, reels on Instagram, so everybody knows, and I've spoken about this in depth, and I do uh, claim to be an Instagram expert, and I study every single day. You have to,
Yeah.
right? You have to learn, but you don't know
Yeah.
what you don't know. You
Yeah.
have to get to a certain point. Back when before COVID, right before COVID hit, reels really on Instagram was IGTV. I'm not sure if you recall this, Robert.
No.
It was Instagram television.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a big thing. You could create your own quote TV show on the platform.
I had no idea.
And they were going from static images, right, just one at a time with really crappy filters,
Yeah.
to inviting people to push the algorithm with these videos. And there was no time limit. You could speak up to 20, 30, 60 minutes. I didn't recommend it. I don't recommend it now, especially
Ooh.
with everyone's attention span being so tiny.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to play into as content creators.
Yeah.
But I had a very full, transparency, admitting my rate, my conversion rate, and my metrics were very low before that point. And I
Mhm.
said, man, if I'm really going to commit myself to being a teacher and selling Instagram coaching services and being the go-to guru for this product and service, I have to try it out on my own first. I always try to do that.
Mhm.
I got myself on camera and I started writing as I teach you and my students. Write a little script, write some bullet points, practice it out.
Mhm.
And I got myself on camera. It was February 2020, right before COVID hit. And I was miserable.
Hmm.
I was oohs, ahs, stuttering,
I
uh,
wouldn't.
very robotic. I mean, hopefully you can never tell. You couldn't ever tell. Now I get on camera. I'm like, here's my coffee. Here's my Jimmy Dean breakfast.
About hams.
Upstairs, here's my hat. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
You're going to hear it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And whittle it down, of course, because there are now tools and tricks I can utilize to make things look a little prettier now that things are evolving,
Oh yeah.
for the Instagram. But I call this quick, quippy marketing or
Yeah.
quick, quippy content.
Yeah.
Before I went to my passion project, which was kind of an offshoot podcast during COVID, and then evolved into my TV show, and evolved now into what we're doing here on the podcast. I grew 300% in my metrics in a matter of 6 days
Wow.
by getting my ass on camera.
Yeah.
Can't make that up. Metrics, numbers never lie.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because like that was another thing for me. Like, well, who wants to see me? Like, why
That's
am
what you
I
were saying.
talking? And I sent you these sort of like comps like that I think would have read or been visuals like a Tom Ford ad or something. Like I wanted all these sleek black and white images of people in the 70s walking around
Yeah,
and
I
this
remember
type
that
of music.
conversation.
And I was being creative director to you.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah,
you showed me some stuff and I was like, you know what? Joe knows what he's doing. I'm just going to let you do it. And you added
uh-huh.
all of these like cool, flashy things that would have never occurred to me. And they work. And that's
Right.
when I just gave, another layer of full trust to you where I pulled myself back from trying to control what the content was and let you do it. And that's
But that's why it's
and the
working.
audience. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But remember, even before I even showed you a contract, before we even talked about numbers or what the investment, anything would be, before I even took over, out of trying to kind of show you what your vision was
Mm-hmm.
and out of extending, I wouldn't call it like an olive branch or anything like that, but just to give you like a little bit of a free taste of what I
Oh
was.
yeah, yeah,
And do you remember that first video that I sent you of all the flashy 70s
yeah. I
with the
do.
disco music?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I
Yeah.
love too is like you change it up. It's not like storyboard and then every time it's a version of the same thing. Like I'll go and I'll see like, oh, look what I sent today. And it'll be like, chick, chick, chick. And then another
Yeah.
one will have like a different melody and a completely different pace to it. And it's all about, like having this mix
Right.
to attract different people and different audiences and reach and touch people in different ways. Very
And we were talking
brilliant,
about
brilliant.
that, right? About that today too, about reaching different audiences, right? So I promised everybody out there in TV land we were going to talk about user generated content,
Mhm.
UGCs, right? So I even said, I know, and I'm not going to air dirty laundry or anything on a podcast because we're very tight knit. We close ranks when we talk,
Yeah,
but just for the sake of the podcast, I know that sometimes life happens. And we don't have to get into why or what happened the past week or 2 weeks, but I tried to make it a little bit easier on you. And I said, you know
totally.
what? I'm so glad to have you back. I'm gonna push. I can befriend Joe, but I need to be Coach Joe right now.
Yeah.
And I said, here are your 2 assignments, but we need people then to review your book on camera and send me the videos.
Yep.
So we take the pressure off you while still building the persona
Which
that
is
goes back
such a
to your
great idea.
original.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you feel about that conversation?
I feel great about, well, I feel really energized by the conversation. Not only was it a bit of a relief, I think it's like a really great concept and idea to have other people talk about the book because like who wants to see me every 2 minutes? But yeah, also like taking the pressure off, but still not being okay, well, contact me when you're ready. You were like a buddy. You were in there and it just kind of both supporting and getting me to the next level of where we need to be and where this project needs to be. And now we're
Right.
back in gear and it's perfect.
By
So
offering some allowances first and
totally.
say, okay, like I understand you're human, so am I. We have a little bit of a breaking point,
Yeah.
and we're allowed that.
Yeah. 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 Like I
But
had
let
canceled a
people do the
meeting with
work for you.
you and yeah. 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 And now we're just like right back in gear, like stronger. Because it wasn't like me feeling guilty and you making me feel guilty or you just like going off and being like, oh, he's not that interested, which is
Correct.
completely the opposite. Yeah.
Correct. Which I knew wasn't the case,
Right.
but that's why we have to have communication in this kind of relationship.
Yep. Agreed.
Simple as that. But one more thing before I give you the floor, and unfortunately, we're almost at the end of today's time. Again, we're going to have you on again for a status report in a few months. But one of the best pieces of content you sent me at the end of your trip to Copenhagen was which one? When you were on the bench talking about what?
Oh, yeah. And I wasn't even like fulfilling an assignment that you gave me, but I was just like sitting on a bench waiting for my friends to finish their yoga class. And I just sat
Mhm.
down and I just talked about characters in my next book and just sort of talked about how nice it is to take a minute and just stop and think about something else and think about
Right.
the plot lines for my next book. And and I've gotten in the habit, I just send you stuff and I figure if something's good, he'll use it. And if it's not, and I didn't think that was particularly good, but you really gravitated to it. And it was, I don't even know why I did it, except that your voice was in my head somewhere saying like, oh, Robert, why don't you just try this and see what happens? So much of it is about just trying things and not
Sure.
being so like, I am going to do it this way. It's just like spontaneous thought and just trying new things out like that was, which I think would be good for recipe for other
Correct.
reels. Yep.
While becoming more comfortable, while paying, homage to your spirit, to your persona,
Yeah.
and to understand going back to the questionnaire, which, I said also was, and I tell other students this, print it out, put it in front of you so you have a little bit of a playbook
Yeah.
when you're working on or starting with your content.
Yeah.
And that piece of video, that piece of, that reel was maybe 28, 38 seconds maximum,
Yeah.
performed doubly than the videos prior to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really is about
Yeah.
just working on it.
But also, like, it was just like the process permeated into my own thought process, where it was just became more natural. And I remember thinking, how am I going to think of all these different videos to do? And
Yeah.
what am I going to say? But that was my biggest thing. Well, what am I going to say? I need a script. I need something. And then that showed that it all changed, and it would just became part of the fabric of my day and of thinking. And yeah, and I like doing that. I plan to do more of them.
And it should be fun
Yeah,
as
fun,
you grow.
fun. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, why not, right?
Why the hell
Why
not?
not?
Yeah. So I am going to give you the floor. We are out of time for today, but I want to know how we can find you on
Oh,
social media and where we can find your book.
yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Well, on social media and Instagram, it's Robert Italia, but it's spelled ROB period ERT period ITALIA.
Yep,
And on Facebook, I think it's just Robert Ross. Is that my tag on Facebook?
correct.
Yes.
Hmm.
And the spelling of my last name is RAASCH. So it's Robert RAASCH. I'm on LinkedIn. I don't know what that handle is. Robert Ross author. That. And the book, The Summer Between, can be found on Amazon, Apple, um, uh, bookshop.org, Alstora, which is a great core culture LGBT website that gives all of the money back to the authors. Like, they don't take a big percentage like some of the others.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And barnesandnoble.com. And also in Europe, I found out while I was over there, friends were ordering it from these sites I'd never heard of that weren't
Hmm.
even affiliated with Amazon. And I'm like, well, how did they find out about my book? And how are people? But I guess it's through the independent network, independent bookstore network. And most independent bookstores, and if you go into your bookstore and they don't carry it, ask them to, or ask them to order it. Because I'm a big fan of independent bookstores, and we want more and more, and we want to keep them healthy and growing. So
Yes,
that's a great way to do
beautiful.
it. Yeah.
Robert, thank you so much for coming on today on the show.
Thank you, Joe.
We wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I look forward, and we look forward out there in TV land to see how you evolve and become even more successful with your book.
Thank you.
So,
With your help. I appreciate it.
sure, my pleasure.
It takes a village, to use a
it takes a
overused,
village.
but
It takes a queer village. It takes a
appropriate.
village.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. It takes the village, Greenwich Village, West Village.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Right. So buy the book. Number one, folks. Number two, this is your host, Joe Federico of J Federico Marketing and the Pride and Promotion Podcast. Go forth with pride, and we'll certainly talk soon. Take care. That's a wrap for today's episode of Pride and Promotion. We hope you're leaving with fresh insights and inspiration on how to harness the power of diversity and innovation in your marketing strategies. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for our next episode, where we've got more exciting topics and expert guests lined up just for you. Until then, I'm Joe Federico. You can find me at www.jfedericomarketing.com, and I want to help you go forth with pride and make your mark in the world of marketing.